Ascension Day isn't just a great Genestealer Cult novel. It's the blueprint for how you can bring it to the tabletop. And today we're going to be talking about exactly that. How to build a lore-accurate Genestealer Cult army based on Ascension Day. So let's dive into it and talk about the book and the lore, and we'll get you that list. So, Ascension Day by Adrian Tchaikovsky is probably one of my favorite Xenos books that I've read in quite a while. I know I've just said that recently on a few different books, but I'm loving how Games Workshop is going out of their way to actually bring us good Xenos lore that lets us deep dive and learn the inner mechanics and the inner motives of why these different armies are doing certain things. And a lot of these books are very recent. So it's a real pleasure to actually get to deep dive these and learn about Genestealers. And in this book, you get to see how the Mechanicus has really pushed the local population of this world to find something else. The Imperium isn't going to help them because the AdMech is the AdMech. They have to be allowed to do their thing, yet as a general population who wasn't raised that way in the Cult Mechanicus from the beginning, they're struggling to just keep their heads above water, trying to maintain a population and survive the brutal world while not being pulled in to be a servitor or a Skitarii, because both of those worlds just aren't good. And one of the few things that actually gives them hope is the Four-Armed Emperor. This different way of thinking is one of the few stabilities that the local population has, and that's what sets the stage for everything that's to come. It was one of my personal favorites that I really enjoyed, and one of the twists that let this story really show me both AdMech and what they're like, as well as Genestealer Cults. And we're not going to do lore accurate list based on this book for the AdMech. I've got one in mind for that later. But for Genestealer Cults, this was an absolute must. So let's talk about what this book gives us as an army list. But first, let's have a word from our sponsor. Hey everybody, today's video is brought to you by Dubby. Dubby is a clean energy drink company that does a lot of really cool stuff. I'm not a huge energy drink person, but I've come around to these guys. They sent me this cool limited edition flavor that I've really enjoyed so far, as well as a bunch of sampler packs, and my personal favorite, Dubby Hydro. Dubby Hydro is basically Gatorade on steroids without all of the bad chemicals mixed in there. It's been really great to experiment and try that out. And unlike a lot of the super artificial, nasty tasting energy drinks, in my opinion, not a huge fan of Monster or Red Bull, but this nice clean flavor that is very few ingredients. And if we look at, I don't know if you guys can see that there, there's maybe 10 ingredients total, and most of them are fruit extracts that keep you nice and healthy and give you the energy you need throughout your day. So go check them out at w.gg/wargamer, or use the code word wargame in your checkout to get 10% off. There'll be a link down in the description below for the starter kit. You can also get other flavors there as well. I'm a huge fan of those, and I definitely would recommend it. So there's a couple different directions we could go. I tried to optimize this list a little bit better to give you some playable board control, because if you went for a true one-to-one, you may or may not get what you're looking for. Right now, Genestealer Cults tend to be a little iffy if you don't know what you're doing or you're new to them. So I went with the simplest, most stable list to make it playable and fun for the larger population. If you're a Genestealer Cult player and you would like to give some suggestions, please do in the comments below. I always love seeing the specific players talking about their armies and the little tips or tricks they have, or if one unit's not as good as they look on paper. I would love to know that as well. So let's dive into this army list. To start us out, the first choice is pretty obvious. We need a Magus. The Magus is one of the main characters in the story and is critical to the story as a whole. On top of that, I have an Acolyte Nikon Ward, which, once again, pretty big part of the story, sort of. The Icon Ward doesn't technically exist, but they still have that role, and they're pretty well known for it. We also have a Biophagus. Once again, the Doctor is pretty obviously a Biophagus. And I have a Nexus. There's a couple different aberrants and things like that you could use in here as well to spice things up. I wanted to try and give us as much infantry as possible, so I didn't include that. And I also made the Magus the Warlord. Once again, I did that purely for lore-accurate reasons. If you wanted to shift this around and give certain other people certain abilities, or make somebody else a Warlord, be my guest. This is your list to play. This is just my concoction based on what we have here. Now, for infantry, I got the Acolyte hybrids. I would do different variants of those two, but those are the 2 boxes you're going to need. For the Acolyte hybrids, you're going to need 5 boxes of them. So it's going to give you a bunch of variants to work with there and build up a lot. Once again, the list will be in the description below, so make sure you check that out. Next, I have 2 boxes of Neophyte hybrids as well. In this story, there's a lot of base-ish humans, like right on the edge of human and starting to lean Genestealer. So that's why there's so many acolytes. The neophytes are a little bit more committed and a little bit more visible. On top of that, you do have 1 unit of aberrants as well. The aberrants, the story, there's only 1. This is where I kind of varied. I could have gone with the character option, or I could have gone with the aberrants. I wanted to put the aberrants on the table as a whole and give me a unit, purely for power and control reasons. If you want to do the character, or if you want to swap out one of the Acolyte hybrids for the aberrant character and pair them with the aberrants, that's fine. There's, like I said, there's a lot of different minor variants you can do in here to tweak it to the way you want it and your aesthetic. Next, I had 2 boxes of Pure Stream Genestealers. These Genestealers, or the aunts and uncles, or I guess these would be the great aunts and uncles, are pretty noticeable throughout the story and are mentioned pretty regularly. But we don't really get to see them as much until the very end. But they're there, they're strong, I would definitely include them. The next unit I have in here wasn't actually a part of the story, but they're kind of hinted at. And that's the Attilan Jackals. The Genestealers on bikes are suggested that you have, when they talk about having some very fast-moving units that are taking control of distant outposts. So the Attilan Jackals seem like a pretty obvious choice to slip in there to fill in that part of the story. Next, we do have several of the trucks that are mentioned. We have a Goliath Rock Grinder, a Goliath Truck, and an Achilles Ridge Runner. All 3 of these vehicles are either loosely described or are actually mentioned. So I felt like they were pretty obvious choices as well. Now, for this, we're going to be using the Brood Brothers detachment. You can go several different ways. I honestly would use these data sheets that I'm about to list, but I would proxy and add mech stuff just to make it the actual storyline. So instead of the Cadian Castellan, I'd have a Skitarii Marshal, but you'd have to play them like a Cadian Castellan because that's the way the rules work. If you want to officially do it, you also have a Cadian Command Squad to give the orders and the things you need. You can do Cadians and then just almost Necromunda them up to give them a little bit more grizzled, beat up feel and still make them fit your aesthetic. And when we get to the painting section, we'll talk more about that. Next, I have 3 Cadian heavy weapon squads and 3 Brood Brother Coven kill teams. These kill teams can be used in 40k as well and give more of that Genestealer Cult accessories and aesthetic that you can use on the other Astra Militarum units to give them more of that feel. Like I said, anything I could proxy with Skitarii, though, I would if I was building it lore accurate to this book. Now that we've talked about the actual army and what units will compose it, let's talk about how much this is going to cost to field. That's going to be a little bit of a different aesthetic. So now that we've covered the actual list and what it's going to look like, let's talk about how much this is going to cost, because it's not going to be cheap. Genestealers are notoriously one of the more expensive units in Warhammer 40k because they have to field a pretty thick, dense army. And this isn't going to be the easiest thing in the world. First, as you guys know, if you've seen any of my videos before, we do the full retail cost. This is a box for box, every single unit purchased separately list so that you get the general retail price. This is based on August of 2025, but it gives you a good picture of the top dollar value this is going to cost. I will suggest that you check out combat patrols and combo boxes. Those things are extremely valuable and will save you a considerable amount of money, as well as checking your LGS and third-party retailers and resellers like eBay. All of that is going to save you a lot of money. So the numbers I'm about to give you are the most you're going to spend on these to give you a picture of what the cost per unit is right now. So for the list I just gave you, the retail total based on Warhammer.com and the Warhammer stores is $1,327.50. So not the most expensive unit we've ever done, but it's definitely up there. And the cost per point isn't great either. It's not one I personally like. Now, once again, combat patrols, combo boxes, things like that will save you a lot of money and will cut heavily into that. The current combat patrol actually holds a large portion of what we need, and getting 2 of them might actually cover most of your army. And if you do that, that will drop that by about 40%. So definitely do that. Next, we do what I call the value cost. The value cost is a per box situation as well. And the link to this cost list will be in the description below. So make sure you go check that out and see what you guys are looking at on the cost per box. I based that off of Wargame Portal and Amazon. Those are my 2 main sources for buying online here in the United States at a value cost. I did not count from my LGS because every single LGS has slightly different profit margins they're working on. So I didn't want to guarantee prices to you guys if you don't live close by and are going to the specific LGSs I go to. And that value cost does save us a significant portion. It brings it down to $1,137.29. So that's a pretty good savings. It's not bad. That brings us down to just above 2 points per dollar, which is kind of the goal when it comes to an army, is get to that 2 points per dollar range so that you can really get the value out of the game. Anything less than that hurts pretty bad. Because, like we discussed, there are some ways you can juice this up to make it more Day of Ascension feeling. I did include swapping out the Cadian Castellan for a Skitarii Marshal. And to be fair, to keep it tournament playable, you are going to have to play that Skitarii Marshal like he's a Cadian Castellan. And that'll be a little bit weird if you don't collect Admech and Master Militarum on top of the Genestealers. You're going to need a lot of books. You're going to need a lot of different things to do and make this work. So do this at your own risk. It's a lot to do. That's kind of the downside of the Brood Brothers detachment. You do have to have the Astra Militarum book as well as the Genestealers book to run it and play it properly. Now, I did mix in a couple boxes of Skitarii as well to swap out one of the Brood Brother Covens and one of the Cadian Command Squad to give us much more of that feel and give us that balance we're looking for. And if you do that, that brings your total up slightly to $1,148.34. So not bad, and it's a little bit different. You aren't seeing as large of jumps as you do with some of the Space Marine units, because the Horus Heresy stuff is a lot more detailed and a lot more expensive. So swapping out AdMech for Astra Militarum is pretty much just a one-to-one swap. It's not going to change your expenditures too much. Okay, so now that you know how much this is going to cost, let's talk about how you're going to paint this and prep it to really make this work for you on the battlefield. So as you can see from the Day of Ascension cover we'll put right here, there's a lot of cool things you can do with the Genestealers. There's a lot of red and there's a lot of purple that get brought into this. You'll be able to really kind of play this up, give it that dirty AdMech feel, while also giving it the exotic, unstable Genestealers feel. So feel free to paint it the way you want to. A lot of the Genestealers have a very almost pale white palette underlaid with purple to give it this almost bruised, sick feel. But if I were doing it, I would just find a color that works for the skin tone. I've seen a lot of different colors that will give it that kind of lilac hue at my LGS. So just go find a paint scheme that you want to fit your feel. And keep in mind, these Genestealers will depend on which Hive fleet they're tied to. So if you want to go with a Hive fleet that has more reds and oranges to them, you can do that. There's enough Hive fleet and enough paint schemes for those different Hive fleets that you can tweak this to fit what you're wanting to do. If you're wanting to stay completely lore accurate to the book, we do have the cover art that dictates that color. Now, when it comes to the Brood Brothers Coven part of the list, that's where you're going to need to have some fun. I would dive into your bits boxes, maybe pick up some AdMech units to bring out that AdMech feel, tweak some of the Brood Brother Covens to have a lot more of that Skitarii feel to them, straight up swapping out the Gideon Castellan for a Skitarii Marshal to give him that feel, and tweak everything to the point where it does feel very AdMech leaning. You can also use some of those Skitarii parts on your Acolytes and Neophytes to make it clear that they're from an AdMech world, that Forge world that very much emphasizes the mechanical. And by doing that, you're going to get a very cool, unique-looking Genestealers army that will be amazing. The hardest part of all of this is going to be painting eyeballs, at least for me. I hate painting eyeballs, and the Genestealers have very human eyes, despite being very alien. So you can't get away with, like you would with the Tyranids, painting them like a pale blue, or making them very feline almost, where it's just the slash instead of the round irises. So play with those as you like. Honestly, half the time what I do is I try it and then I wash hard on the face so that a lot of that dark shading kind of covers the eyes and hides them kind of like if they were wearing a hat. And it saves me a lot of pain that way. But if you're an expert painter and you want to dive that, be my guest, make them look amazing. And let me know down in the comments below, send us pictures. I would love to see those. You can find me on social media as well. Send me pictures there. It's something I always enjoy doing. Honestly, when I do have a little time to be bored on social media, a lot of times I'm just scrolling and looking at different paint jobs because a lot of people do really cool aesthetics, and that inspires me to do some fun paint jobs as well. So, like I said, go dirty, lean reds and purples. That gives you the aesthetic and feel, and it would give you that proper AdMech feel to the Genestealers as well. So, finally, let's talk tactics and how you play it on the tabletop, and then we'll get you back to playing your games. Today's video is brought to you by me and my company, Tartary Press. That's true. We also have some really cool merch on there. That's www.tylertartar.com. I'll have it pop up right here for you. And there you'll be able to get Readers of the Wargame merch, all of my books, and merch related to my books as well. So make sure you go check that out. But to make it even better, we also have the Readers of the Wargame Patreon that is available now. So you can go to the link in the description to the Patreon and check that out. We have some really cool tiers going with just a basic $2 tier where you get early access to each video. My goal is to have those early accesses come out on Friday, so you have the entire weekend to watch them before they go live for everyone else on Tuesday. We have a $5 tier where you get to vote on at least 2 of the episodes each month so that you can see what you want to see on this channel. And I'm super excited to have a lot more availability with you guys so that you can make those votes and choose and be more involved in this channel as well. We also have a $10 tier. This $10 tier includes everything from the first 2 tiers, but it also includes access to our community Discord and our community army. As you guys may remember from some of our posts and things like that on the channel, we've been building a custom army together using the polls, and I'm going to start naming units after you guys. At the $10 tier, it will be just a standard infantry unit, but there's a 4th tier. This one, honestly, if you guys want to do this, I appreciate it a lot. I don't expect it, but that one is the War Master tier. That tier is $100 a month, but you will be one of the main characters in the army. And on top of that, each quarter when I create a new shirt, you will get a copy. So make sure you guys go and check out that Patreon as well as our website to get really cool merch, access to my books, and on the Patreon, access to all the videos early, community discords, and things like that. And let me know what you guys think about that in the comments below or on Patreon so that we can make this even better for all of you. Now let's get back to the video. Something we've already talked about. For this, we're going to be running the Brood Brothers Auxilia. That gives us the proper depth and control and the ability to use more of the AdMech units. Well, AdMech units. A lot of these are going to have to be Astra Militarum units that we're proxying with AdMech units to give us the proper feel for this. But by doing that, we have a lot of pretty fast-moving infantry that we can position to go on different missions and score us points that way, as well as positioning to cover different objectives. Your units are not super powerful. They will die pretty quickly. Luckily, a lot of the army mechanics give you the ability to bring back several of those units, but it's going to be interesting. You're going to have to use your vehicles carefully to counter any enemy vehicles. I'd also be using at least one of them to transport your aberrants around to hit people where they're not expecting it. By doing that, I think you're going to get some pretty cool different maneuvers and schemes to bring out a lot of the different tricks you can do as a Genestealer Cult army. They're always weird to play because they do so many different unique mechanics that sometimes you forget about different things and it's hard to keep track of where they are and what they're doing. And that's definitely going to be your goal here by doing the Day of Ascension lore accurate list. So if you're a Genestealer Cult player, let me know if you guys think that'll work or if you'd suggest any other changes. And don't forget, down in the description is the link to the actual army list, which you should be able to download, the link to the cost list, as well as the link to our sponsor, who is fantastic. I absolutely love them. So make sure you go to that website and use our code WARGAME to get 10% off. And we'll get you back to the tabletop.